Hi, I'm Roy Collin, the host of the podcast. You can find everything about me by scanning the QR code there or going to roycollin.com, and you'll find my six podcasts: the Podfather, helping people become podcasters; the Awakening, exposing fraud and corruption but with solutions; the Crypto, all things blockchain technology; meditation podcast; speaking podcast; and the Learn Polish podcast. You can also help the show by actually making a donation, visiting the store, or helping my sponsors. I hope you enjoyed this week's show. Welcome to the Speaking Podcast. You can find all our episodes on speakingpodcast.com. My guest is best-selling author, not of one, but two books, speaker, a director of a humanitarian organization, a podcaster, which I always enjoy. You're a TV talk show host. You're from Michigan in the USA. Kim Sorrelle. Did I do it correctly? Yes.
Perfect. That was so perfect, right? Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, yeah, no, looking for. I mean, you're doing a lot. So I suppose let's kind of. I mean, I want to talk about the humanitarian and everything, but let's kind of get a little bit to know Kim a bit. Kind of what's your kind of journey?
Sure. Yeah. So I started my first business when I was 18 years old. So business has been my world, my gig. And then a couple years ago, I sold most of my brick and mortar stuff and I'm doing other things and I love everything I do. And I think that's what life is all about, right? Like really enjoy what you're doing and know that you're contributing to the world. And so um, what shifted in my life is I was happily married, just became an empty nester, and found out I had breast cancer. And 4 months later, my husband found out he had pancreatic cancer, passed away 6 weeks after that. And of course, that turned my world upside down and it gave me a whole different perspective. It's 15 years ago. And I changed my life a lot at that moment. And I do anything to have my husband back, but man, life is good. I love what I do. I speak, I write, I get to do all the fun things.
And because I remember, like, I was reading that, and I was like, it's bad enough you being diagnosed with cancer because that's such a hard journey anyway, and you have to try to figure out how to overcome it, what kind of treatment you're going to take. And like 6 weeks is a fast journey, and I know with the pancreatic, some it's easier, but I know with the pancreas, it's very hard. But like that must have been a very painful, and like I don't want you reliving it, obviously, because but it's a part of your journey, and like your world, obviously, as you mentioned, turned upside down. But like, what was going on in your head? Because, and the reason why I'm saying it is, unfortunately, that's not unique because, especially in the States, there's so many people now that are being diagnosed with cancer, and we know that it's between things they're spraying on us, the foods that they're giving us, and everything. And a lot of the times, people just assume, "Oh, should the government have our back?" There's no way they would do that. But I think the more we see, the more that we go, how can they have products that we're drinking that are actually cancerous? Talc that's cancerous, and so many different products. But going back, we never thought that could be possible. But like when this happened, like your own headspace, because you're just kind of going through this, like, oh my God, I have something, and you're trying to live your own journey, and then you have to try to help somebody that you love, your husband.
Yeah, it was a strange time for sure. And I've yet to meet anybody who's had this exact sort of circumstance where they're, just a couple minutes or a couple months into their journey that their spouse also gets diagnosed and passes away. And so it's a unique journey. So there's no book written about how to do this, how to navigate it, right? And when I found out I had cancer over the phone on a Friday afternoon, blah, 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 you have breast cancer, blah, 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 we'll call you on Tuesday. I was floored. I didn't even know what to think. And then uh but you have to deal, right? You have to live through it. And one of the things is people would say to me, Kim, why you? You help people, you do this, you do that. And my response was always, well, why not me? Why would I be immune from it? It can touch anybody anytime. I was 47 years old and I thought I was too young for anything and thought that there's not breast cancer in my family. It's not going to happen to me, but it does. It can happen to anybody at any time. And so it was never a why me kind of a thing. My husband started having stomach pain shortly after I was diagnosed. And so he went to the doctor, and the doctor said, "Oh, it's because you're nervous about Kim. Like, just take some Tums, Rolaids, whatever, you'll be fine. Well, 2 months later, it wasn't any better. He went back, and the doctor said the same thing, but did make an appointment for him with a gastro guy. So he went there. Then they said the same thing, and that just takes some Rolaids, and he was in pain. And so I said, that's it, go to the ER. At least they'll run a test in the emergency room. At least they'll do something, not just send you home. And he did. And they decided to keep him overnight. And I'm like, keep you overnight? They don't keep anybody overnight. What is going on? And I was still recovering from a surgery when he called and told me they were going to keep him overnight. And so he drove himself to the emergency room. I whipped on some clothes because I was in bed with elastic waist pants watching Grey's Anatomy reruns or whatever I was doing. And so I quickly got dressed, hopped in my car, and in my Vicodin induced state drove like a mad woman to get to the hospital. And right before I got there, my phone rang again. And he said, I guess there's a spot on my liver. And I'm like, spot on your liver? What is this? I just started weeping. I just started bawling. And I don't really remember parking my car. I do remember running in, holding all parts of my body because I had a few surgeries and they found bladder cancer, whatever, along with the breast. So I'm crying. They tell me where he is. He's behind a curtain. So I whip back the curtain and he's sitting on the edge of the bed as if nothing is going on. And he looked at me and he said, listen, I'm not going to invite you out anymore if this is the way you're going to behave. And I said, listen, buddy, you are not allowed to be funny right now. And so that began our journey with him. And it takes a few days. Anyone who's had cancer, it's usually not an immediate diagnosis and takes a few days to figure out what's the source, what kind of cancer is it, and what the prognosis is like. And so it took a few days, and then we found out pancreatic cancer. It's probably the worst one. It's supposed to be the most painful, and there's not a cure for it.
So after, his passing, I mean, was it long before you kind of got clear yourself, or because I can't even fathom how difficult that could be for you because you're going through it yourself and then your loved one. So like after he's passed in, you're still getting treated? How long did it take before you actually got the all clear?
Well, he passed away in March, and I got the all clear like in December. So I was still going through all my stuff, but got through it, and great doctors, and everything was fine. But it was an odd time because mentally dealing with cancer, you deal with it mentally, you deal with it emotionally as well as physically. It's not just the physical. And so dealing with that and coming to terms with that, coming to terms with losing my husband after 29 years of marriage and this whole new life, it made me question some things. And one thing I knew is that I wanted to live fully. I wanted to live in a way that would honor my husband because he was really a great guy. We had an awesome marriage. He was an awesome man, a wonderful dad, great husband. And so I wanted to honor him with my life. I wanted to not just stay down underneath grief, but come get on top of grief and live fully, do what I could. So it made me question the real meaning of love. Because I think, Roy, if you get 12 people in a room and you say, what is love? You're going to get 12 different answers. And so I thought, well, what is it then? Nobody's really done this deep dive that I could find. So I decided I would dedicate a year to figuring out the true meaning of love. And I was in Haiti most of the time. And it's interesting because if you knew me, you would know that I have a hard time committing to an entree when I go out for dinner. So to commit a year to something was a big stretch for me. But man, it was life changing, and it was absolutely the right thing to do. And what I learned about love just rocked my world, changed my life, and so it was an incredible, incredible time.
I mean, I want to delve into that a bit further, but you mentioned your kids. I mean, that must have been very difficult for them because, I mean, you talk about love. I mean, there's unconditional love for your children and vice versa. But for them to, first of all, know about yourself and then so fast that their dad passed, that must have been very difficult for them as well. And knowing that you're still going through that.
Right. Yes, I think it was. And I think one of the mistakes I made early on was I felt like I just had to be strong for them. Like I had to put on a strong face. I had to be strong for them, and that somehow my strength would give them strength. And really, I probably didn't need to do that. I mean, they were old enough to understand, and they were in their own grief. And um, it was. I had a son in the Navy at the time, so he was away. He wasn't even home, and so it was it was hard on them for sure.
So you spent the year figuring out love. I mean, as you say, you ask 12 people in a room, they'll give you different answers. So what was your journey on that? What did you find out? How did it
Yeah.
all?
Well, I use this 2,000-year-old poem that in the United States you hear at a lot of weddings. I don't know if it's the same around the world, but love is patient, love is kind, does not envy, does not boast, etc. And I decided I would use one word or phrase a month and figure out, well, what is love that is patient? What is love that is kind? And the first thing I figured out is there are 14 of them. So it actually took me 14 months rather than a year. But yeah, I mean, if I would have only done the first month, my life would have changed. If I would have only figured out love is patient, my life would have changed. It took me, Roy, I don't know if I'm hard-headed or what, but man, it took me till the end of every single month before I'd go, oh, now I finally get it. It took a long time to really figure out each one. And love that is patient is recognizing that, first of all, we should love everybody, right? I mean, if you just love everybody, your world is different. The world would be a different place if we just loved everybody. Just love everybody. And if you do that, if you love, which we should, then you recognize that this moment right here, right now, this is the most important moment of your life. What's in the past is in the past, and what's in the future is yet to come. This is the moment. And when you recognize that, then you give whoever it is you're with, you give them all of you. You don't give them part of you like I used to do. I stunk at this, man. I was so bad. I would be thinking about who has to get to soccer and what I'm making for dinner or a meeting I have later while I was engaged in a conversation with somebody. And when I practiced this, it took a lot of practice, but when I did, and I got to a place where I know how to fully engage and love with love that is patient, it changed everything. I heard things I never would have heard. You know, so much of language is nonverbal. Some say 90% is nonverbal. So I heard things a different way. I wasn't hearing things based on a label I put on somebody or assumptions that I knew about somebody or anything else. I really listen, and it does change everything.
Like obviously the book Love is, but kind of in my own journey, what I've loved, it's kind of if you've unconditional love, because if, for example, if we look at somebody who's a thief, somebody who's got an addiction or something like that, and you try to kind of take it back. And like how I was able to give forgiveness for different people is I brought him back to the child. So then there was unconditional love because when you see a child, you just adore the child and you see its external circumstances have created them who they are. And can you blame them for that, for the journey that they've got? And I mean, yeah, there is people that make certain decisions and, they don't have empathy in it at certain levels and you kind of have to draw the line. Do you draw the line? I'm not sure. But if you look at people that have been hurt, as people are aware, hurting people hurt. But like when you give unconditional love, the person looks at you differently and treats you differently as well because they're used to being judged and hated. And it's amazing that once you don't have that hatred towards people, they kind of feel, I don't know, is it that they've been seen, they've been felt, they feel the love. And then you actually, it's like a veil comes down. And is that like what you've kind of experienced as well?
Yeah, you put that so well. I think that's so true. And I think another thing that goes along with that is that when you love unconditionally, you're treated differently. You're looked at differently, right? Like you said, the veil comes down and they look at you differently. And behaviors can change because of that. Like people's lives can change when they realize that they're loved. And there's so many people, like in the United States right now, the Surgeon General says over 50% of people are living in extreme loneliness. I find that just unbelievable and so, so sad. So when you can connect with somebody, when you can give them your love, part of you, it makes all the difference in the world in somebody's life. And you know when it's genuine, you know when it's sincere, right? And well, why would it be anything but? You can't really fake love. You know, you either are walking in it or you're not. But I love the way you put it. Absolutely. So true.
So with the book then, like you're breaking down kind of your own journey for the different topics that you've mentioned for each one and how you've kind of what you discovered as you had a month for each thing.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what I was doing. And so some of them I was dreading, to be honest. Like the first couple are so easy. I thought they'd be easy. They weren't easy, but they're easy words. Love patient, love is kind, does not envy, of course not, does not boast, of course not. They all ended up being way different than I thought they'd be. But those I could deal with. But there's one that is love keeps no record of wrongs. And I thought, oh my word, I did not want to do that month. I kind of went into it fighting and screaming and going, how do you do this? Because you might forgive people, but you don't forget the things that happened to you. And so every month there was something that happened that would finally show me what it was. And that particular month, I was asked by a man from the US to go and show him this water project I was working on in Haiti. He wanted to see if he wanted to get involved. And I'm like, sure, of course. And so he brought 7 other men with him. So there were 8 American men. And I brought 2 Haitian friends who both happened to be men to translate, and they knew the water project inside and out, and me. So 8 American men, 2 Haitian men, and me. We got to where we were staying, and it was just this very small place with 2 rooms, and each room had 4 twin-size beds. And I'm looking and I'm going, oh, shoot, we can move this, we can move that. We brought a air mattress and we brought a couple cots and we'll be fine. And so uh, no sooner was I thinking that than the head guy who had contacted me called me over. Kim, can I talk to you? I'm like, sure. And he said, did you see the rooms? And I'm thinking, buddy, there's nothing else to see. I mean, this is a little place. And then I thought, oh, he's going to think I want my own room. So I'll say, well, it's okay. I'll sleep outside. And he'll say, no, no, no. If anyone should sleep inside, it should be you. Then I'll say, well, I don't care if there's other people in my room. And he'll say, good, because there's only so much space. So I said, well, it's okay. I'll sleep outside. And he said, oh, good, good. Because we have men on this trip that would not want a woman in their room. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what did I just do? I mean, there are tarantulas and snakes and chupacabras or whatever lurking in the bushes of Haiti. And I just said I would sleep outside with these creatures. And so I looked around, I saw this piece of plywood kind of held up by these wooden things. And I thought, well, if I put the air mattress under there, at least I won't get rained on, if it rains. So first night I went to bed and I was scared to death. I was so afraid. And I blew up the air mattress, which held air for about an hour. Then I'm on gravel. And it was so loud. Dogs were barking and horns were honking. And then finally that died down. I don't know, sometime after midnight, I guess. And then voodoo drums started in the distance. And then that kept me awake. So 4 or 5 a.m., finally I doze off and I go to sleep and wake up the next morning and I'm fine. So, second night, same thing. No air in the air mattress. The dogs, the horns, the voodoo drums. Finally, I'm asleep, but I woke up because there was something on my leg. And I thought, oh my word, can I be airlifted to Miami in time to save a limb? Like, do they have the anti-venom to whatever's about to take off my arm? I mean, I didn't know what was going to happen. And so I was so afraid. And so I slowly lifted my head and I slowly opened my eyes. And it was a chicken. There was a dang chicken on my leg. And I didn't know whether to be happy because it was a chicken and not something worse, or mad because it woke me up from the little bit of sleep I got. The third night came and went, no problem. Fourth night, same thing. Dogs, horns, voodoo drums, finally asleep. And again, I woke up because again, there was something on my leg. And again, I was terrified. And again, I slowly lifted my head and I slowly opened my eyes, and it was the chicken. Again, it was the chicken. Again, I didn't know whether to be mad or whether to be happy. But that night, we had chicken for dinner. So the fifth night came and went without a problem. And I got to tell you, Roy, at first I was mad. I thought, who do these guys think they are? Like I would hope that my sons wouldn't treat a woman like this. Like I was being treated subhuman, right? You're okay to go sleep outside, right? And I thought, man, who treats people like this? And I was bitter. And then I thought, oh, love keeps no record of wrongs. And I finally realized what that meant. So we're in control of our own stories. We're in control of our own lives. We shouldn't let anybody control you, and people don't control you. It's all up to you. So it means we're also in control of the narrative, right? So shifting the narrative from, oh my word, these guys that did me wrong to, man, I could literally sleep anywhere in the world and be perfectly fine changes everything. So, bitterness and all that stuff only hurts me anyway. So if you can shift the narrative, that is love that keeps no record of wrongs.
Love it, love it. And just curious, kind of friends and family, your kids, how did they kind of react to this journey that you were going on to live through?
Well, they've lived with me their whole lives, and so they know there's a little crazy going on. And so the biggest thing I think with my sons, I've got four sons and a daughter, and the biggest thing with my sons was my safety. Haiti isn't the safest country in the world. There's parts of it that are extremely safe, but it's a country that I love, and but there's people are so impoverished that there are desperate things that happen there because people need to eat. And so, more than anything, they were just always checking on me to make sure I was actually still alive.
And what exactly is the humanitarian that you're director of? What is it? What projects are you doing?
So, it's Raise of Hope International is the name of it. And we're a partnering organization. So, we work with people in their own country who have a passion, a mission, a vision to do something to help people in their own country and just need someone to walk alongside. So instead of being the typical American organization where we go in and fix things or say, this is what you need to do, we say, what do you need? What is the next step? Maybe a medical clinic isn't the next step for them. It could be a school, or it could be a food source, a farm. It could be anything. But people know what they need, and people know what the people around them need. And so we help with a business plan so that there's some sustainability. So they're not always looking for money. And we help with money, seed money to get going and whatever they need throughout, and supplies and things that they can't get in country, and anywhere that we can help them to do what they believe they're supposed to do. So I work with a lot of schools, health clinics, community projects, water projects, clean water projects, and I love it.
Beautiful. The other book then, Cry Until You Laugh, I believe is the title of that one. So is that regarding the cancer journey, or what exactly that one?
It is. I was got that phone call on a Friday afternoon, right, saying that I had breast cancer, and so Saturday morning, the first thing I did was go to the bookstore, and everything was either very depressing or very medical. And I thought, well, I want to know what it feels like, or are there decisions I need to make? What is this journey? What is it going to look like? I had no idea. I didn't have any close friends that had been through it. I didn't have any family. And so I started writing, which was great therapy. But I started writing kind of as a way to keep up family and friends on, hey, I'm having surgery tomorrow. I'm going to the doctor, whatever. But 16 years ago now, that was, and so it was through email. I would send emails because Facebook wasn't really, a thing then and whatever. But it was so much more because I was talking about what it felt like, and emotionally and spiritually and what I was dealing with. And before I knew it, 5,000 people were reading what I was sending out. And I just kind of wrote when I felt like writing. And so I wrote, and then I was still writing when my husband was diagnosed and when he passed away. So I wrote for about a year, a little over a year, and I it's it kind of answers the questions a bit about what it's going to feel like, or certainly what it felt like for me, and then losing my husband, I mean, just kind of all of it and the emotional roller coaster. But I titled the book Cry Until You Laugh because that's what you need to do. You need to cry, of course, cry, grieve, deal with of course. But at some point in time, you want to be able to laugh again. And I think sometimes people think they need permission to laugh again, like they're dishonoring somehow the memory. But you don't need permission. Just laugh. When laughter comes, let it happen. I mean, it's healing, and so that's why I cry until you laugh.
And did you find just being kind of in touch with your daily emotions? Because it can be a roller coaster. There'll be days you can't get out of bed because your energy isn't there or whatever. And it's just like by you sharing and just were people kind of responding in kind of or like to what you're writing that it gave you kind of fuel to go, oh, this is helping me, but yet sharing your journey, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I was getting emails from all over the world. I felt so much support, even though it wasn't, I had plenty of physical support, in my home, but I felt so much support from so many people. And yes, I mean, I would run into people and they'd say, "Oh my word, I read your emails and that what you said about that just really helped me with this and whatever it happened to be." And I still get letters like that. I still get emails like that, like people that have read the book and have gone through something and are like, "Oh my gosh, that's how I felt, and thanks for putting it in words. I didn't even know how, and thanks for the heads up on what I am going to go through," kind of thing. And so, yeah, it's that's the plan. I mean, that's certainly the goal, is that it can help other people.
Mm. Beautiful. So you're a podcaster as well. You might let people know what's the show called and what exactly you're covering in it.
Yeah, so I actually have two podcasts. So one I co-host with a guy, and it's the Neil Haley Show. Love Is podcast is what it's called, and it's a celebrity interview podcast. So I interview celebrities. So a lot of actors, actresses that are doing things in the world or doing things. You have a movie coming out, things like that. Um, Authors, whoever it happens to be. And then my Love Is podcast is all about story. It's about people's story, their journey, what they've been through, that they came out on the other end, and to give hope and inspiration that no matter what you're going through, chances are real good somebody else has already been through it. And it's always nice to hear that you can get through it when you're in the middle of it. Quite often, things can seem so dark, and you wonder, is there hope? Is there a way out? Will this ever end? And so it's story that one is about.
I believe you were chased by a motorcycle gang. You might let what's that? You mentioned stories, so when I read that, I was like, I'm interested in that story.
Yeah, well, so the island has two countries, Haiti on one side, Dominican Republic on the other, two completely different countries, two uh, different languages, different everything, different cultures, different everything. And so I'd cross the border many times. I do a lot of work in Dominican Republic. And so I'd cross the border a lot, and I knew the way. And I was in this big truck. We had to bring this big truck back to, I have a son who works full time in Dominican Republic. We needed to bring this big truck back to him that he'd driven over from Dominican. So we got to the border, and I was always told, don't stop on the Haitian side, just go through, because the way it was set up, it was one building, but basically on one end was Haitian customs, and then on the and immigration, and on the other end was Dominican. So you'd walk into this office, get that stamp, walk into the next office, get that stamp. And as we're driving through, people are waving us down and they're yelling at us and whatever. And I'm thinking, what's going on? So we get through, and it was flooded like crazy, like high flooded. This lake that was right there had, it was nuts. So we're driving through this water. We get to the other side, and this guy comes up to us, a Dominican man who spoke English. And he said, no, no, you were supposed to stop over there. And we're like, oh my gosh, how do we drive this truck back? You know, what do we do? So he arranged a couple motorcycles to take us over. And by motorcycle, I mean like a dirt bike, because that's kind of the motorcycles that they use. And so I left one of my friends in the truck to kind of guard our stuff because we had tools and whatever. And the other friend went with me. We took our passports, and the Dominican man went with us as well. And we negotiated a price, what we were going to pay the motorcycle people. We go over, get stamped, come back, and then I pay them. And then they're telling me it's not enough money. And I've been around the block enough that I know that you negotiate first and then you stick with it. Otherwise, forever and ever, they're going to want more and more and more. People will get to know you, they'll spread the word, and you're just going to be in trouble. And so I said, no, you know, this is what we agreed on. So here you go, and whatever. Well, we got stamped on the other side. We started driving away, and we had one guy still in the back. So one of my friends was driving and I was in the passenger seat, and the Dominican man who was helping us and my friend were in the back of this open truck. And all of a sudden he's yelling, go faster, go faster, go faster. And we're like, well, what's going on? And then we were hearing bang, bang. And we realized that there were people that were throwing rocks, like big rocks, like not little rocks at us, at our truck, at the guys in the back. And so my friend just put the gas pedal down and started driving, and we're on dirt roads. And then we see motorcycles are following us, and there's motorcycles that are even getting up to our doors. And so he's driving as fast as he possibly can, and there's curves and he's not slowing down. And we're going through, I mean, it was like being on a racetrack, like the worst racetrack ever built kind of a racetrack. It was so scary. We just kept going, and the motorcycles were relentless. And we thought, what if we stop? What if something happens to the truck? You know, what if something happens to the guys in the back? They pull them out or whatever. What's going to happen? And we kept driving, driving. And finally, the motorcycles gave up, and they finally left us alone. And man, did we breathe a sigh of relief. And my friend that was driving, he said, what was that about? You know, what was going on? And I said, well, they wanted more money. That I'm thinking that's what it is, you know. And I said no, you know, I didn't want to give them more money. And he said, well, geez, you know, how much was it? You know, thinking like we could have avoided all this, Kim, if you would have just whatever. And I sheepishly said $5. So $5 almost cost us our lives. So I should have, hindsight, given him the money, and everything would have been okay.
Yeah, so it's scary experience. Just like, you kind of have like the unconditional love and everything. And because if we look what's going on in the States, because I mean, there's the elections is coming on now, and what was interesting for me with some of the psychologists that were I was talking to on my show is like one mentioned that from 2016, so many people were coming in with depression based on politics and talking. And I know that families are falling out because you either believe in the Democrats or the Republican. I mean, for those others say it's the same bird, like just different wings. It's like, but we have to kind of have unconditional love for that as well, because it's like every you agree with somebody, as long as they agree with your belief system. And the thing is, especially with social media and everything, because like I have friends that I'm whether we talk about chemtrails and that they think I'm crazy for my beliefs in that, and they have their. But what happens is you are pushed with what you believe in. So all of these social media channels, they'll just keep pushing your belief system, which reinforces what you think, which then makes people just kind of fall out. But the reality is they shouldn't be falling out at all, because they should be having the unconditional love. And I'd love you to touch on that one, because we have seen people just, it's just split. And it's sad to see, because of politics, that people are fighting with their neighbor, their friend, their cousins, in-house fighting. and
Yeah.
it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be. I totally agree with you. Well, first of all, control, like we don't control anybody, right? But we control ourselves. And so love, I believe, is not just an emotion. It's not there's a lot of myths around love. It's not a two-way street. It's 100% up to you. You don't give love to get love. That's a transaction. If you do that, you're going to be disappointed and lonely, whatever. So love is who you are. So it's walking, talking, living, breathing. It's who you are. How you decide to live it, totally up to you. But when Democrats and Republicans fight, or people in general, you might say, well, they might say something like, well, I love everybody, but those darn Democrats or those Republicans. And it's like, well, why are you putting labels on people? People don't have labels. You're Roy, I'm Kim. That's good enough. People might belong to clubs, or they might belong to a party, or they might belong to a group, but that's not who they are. To get to the essence of who a person is and realize that those are just maybe part of their belief system, but that's not who they are. And so I find it much more interesting to talk to somebody and say, well, why do you believe that way? I think it's really interesting to know because every day leads us to today, right? And so all of our experiences, everything we've read, there are people that sit in front of the news, sit in front of CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, whatever, get that slant on the news and buy into it. And that's the only thing. And in reality, nobody's trying to destroy our country. Everybody thinks that what their idea is in running the country is the best thing for the country. Nobody's trying to bring us down. So no matter who gets elected, they're going to do their best to make the country the best it can be. That's what it comes down to. It's not the propaganda of, oh my gosh, if they get elected, we all have to move out of the country, or whatever. It's silly stuff. And so it comes down to loving the person, not the party. You don't have to agree with everybody, but you do have to love everybody. And I think it's great people have different opinions. It would be boring if everybody believed everything exactly the way I do, right? I mean, it's an interesting conversation, but keep it at a conversation. Recognize the human standing before you, and don't you have a big title over their heads, Democrat, 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 and that's all you can think about. But think about the person who is a mom, a dad, a friend, a daughter, a son, a cousin, whatever, and keep it human. We're getting away from the humanness of us and the beauty in that.
Finally, there's the word love because people would say, I love you. And sometimes someone says it because they want to hear it back. And it's kind of like they're just saying it. And some don't because it's like they're feeling. When somebody says to somebody, I love you, how do you define that after your journey?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on what they mean and how it's said. But one of the things I'd say is that if you're saying I love you to get it back, at some point in time, at least, you're going to be heartbroken because not everybody's going to say it back to you. And if you are giving love with this expectation that love is going to come back to you a certain way and at a certain time, and then people hold grudges, like in couples, geez, he's not even romantic. Like I'm dropping hints and he's not doing anything. Does he really love me? And so if you're loving and putting conditions on your love, then when you say I love you, hopefully you're sincere, right? Like I love everybody. I love you, Roy. And so hopefully there's sincerity in that. But if it doesn't is not said back to you, that's no big deal. You're not a ventriloquist. You're not going to move their mouth. They don't know what you're thinking. They're not mind readers. They don't know what is in your heart, what they think you want, any of that stuff. And so, love doesn't have expectations like that. Love just loves.
Beautiful, beautiful. But what I can say is I love this conversation. So you might let people know where they can find you, Kim.
Well, I am literally the only Kim Sorrelle spelled my way in the entire world because there are way too many letters. There are two R's, two L's, two E's, Sorrelle. So kimsorrelle.com is my website. Love is available any book site, a lot of brick and mortar stores, but as well as all the Amazons and all the wherever people buy books, and in every form a book is sold. And um, I do have, if people go to my website, I've got a free 14-day love challenge that uh, just kind of touches on all 14 of the principles. And um, it's just kind of fun to do. So feel free, go to my website. You don't have to do anything to get it. I mean, it's just there. And so that's how you can get a hold of me, I guess. My website, kimsorrelle.com. Look me up online, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, make sure I'll put both the audio and the video, and I'll also put the links for the book as well as your podcast and the other social media channels because people follow what they like. So thank you very much, Kim.
Thank you so much.
So for the Speaking Podcast, sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, share with your friends, and comment on what we discuss. We would love to hear what you thought. Until next week, take care.
So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. As mentioned at the start, you can find my 6 podcasts on roycollin.com or scan the QR code if you're looking to start a podcast or do a podcasting tour, help with that. Also, if you're looking for a virtual assistant, we also have that service. And you can help the show by visiting the store, supporting our sponsors, or making a donation. Until next week, take care.